record this meeting for any students who are unable to attend the session. So you probably just got notified that I just started recording. So welcome to our Meet the Firms panel day 4. So the topic of today is building career relationships and networking in a virtual environment. So to start off, I will have all of my panelists introduce themselves. If you want to just go in order from this panel slide, that would be great. So Matt, if you want to kick it off for HCA, that would be awesome.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. My name's Matt Edmond. I work at HCA Healthcare as a vice president in the internal audit department. And specifically, I lead our IT audit team as well as our analytics and software development team that we have within the department. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with HCA Healthcare, we are the second largest company in the state of Tennessee. So we're a Fortune 100 company, but we are one of the largest providers of healthcare services throughout the country. And so we own hospitals throughout the United States, as well as other aspects of providing care, including urgent care clinics and physician offices. And so the size of our internal audit department is about 150 professionals, and we're structured like a Big Four firm within a company, just to give you some perspective. So, and just a little more about me, I've been with the company 18 years. It's the only place I've ever worked since I graduated from college, and I've just, you know, kind of moved my way up in the organization. So happy to be here today, and I'll turn it over to Kyle.
All right, thank you. My name is Kyle Brown, and I work with International Paper. International Paper, primarily a lot of our products you may not see every day, but you probably touch at least one of our products each and every day, whether it's our corrugated packaging that's coming to you via Amazon and showing up on your doorstep, or whether it's the paper that you use when you're printing, when you're at the university, or when you're checking your mail at home. I work in our North American container business, so I work for the container business that makes the corrugated packaging. I am the manager of accounting and analysis, which means that I oversee the budgeting, forecasting, and strategic planning process for our 120 plus box plants throughout the United States and Latin America. And just to tell you a little bit how we're staffed as a finance and accounting function, we do have a centralized corporate accounting group as well. But we also have controllers that are out in the field each and every day making decisions and helping our box plants make financially based decisions that are best for the enterprise. I've been with International Paper for 15 years, and I graduated from the University of Tennessee with a degree in finance and in 2002. So now I'll turn it over to one of my peers, Christina Kuhn.
Hi, good morning. Christina Kuhn. I have been with International Paper since 2013. I did both my undergrad and my graduate degree in accounting at the University of Tennessee. So as Kyle mentioned, I work in the North America container facility. I have 10 plants that report into me from a finance perspective. So from a day-to-day standpoint, get to work through strategy, budgeting, capital processes across the board. And as Kyle mentioned, you may not recognize or realize as many things that you're touching on a day-to-day basis that International Paper either produced or had a hand in producing. So excited to tell you a little more about that as we continue and go through the week. Emily, I think it's over to you.
Yeah, so my name is Emily Fritz. I'm the Director of Internship Recruitment and Development at Northwestern Mutual here in our local Knoxville office. So we are a holistic financial planning firm. We've been around since 1857. So we meet with individuals and businesses just to help them achieve financial security just through the different insurance and investment products and services that we have. So my role at Northwestern Mutual is that I recruit students for our internship program. Then I also help coach and develop our interns once they're here. So I spend a lot of time with them day to day and help them make sure that they got what they need to be successful. And then I'm also this contracting and licensing coordinator. So I help onboard new interns and financial representatives, get them licensed, get all of their paperwork taken care of just to make sure that they have what they need to get off to a fast start. So I've been at Northwestern Mutual for almost 7 years. I'm from Knoxville and I'm also a UT alum. So I graduated in 2010 with a degree in business and marketing. So I'm glad to be here, and I guess it's now Candace's turn.
Hello, I'm Candace Ford, and I'm at Pilot Company. So we have about 700 travel centers across the U.S. and Canada. We are headquartered here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we do all of our corporate functions out of Knoxville. We do all of our finance functions internally. So all of those reside here within Knoxville. I manage our financial planning and analysis department. So we do all of the budgeting, all of the analysis, forecasting for the company, for the locations across the US and Canada, and then also for all of our corporate functions. And we have a couple of different corporate initiatives outside of just the travel centers. So most folks think of Pilot just as the Flying J and Pilot travel centers that you'll see on the interstate. We also have some pretty big functions in Houston with the energy segment and a few other areas across the US like that. So we manage all of that here out of the corporate Knoxville office. I've been here about 5 years. I've been in Tennessee about 5 years. I'm originally from Northeastern Ohio. And I went to Ohio State. I have my undergrad in mathematics, and then I have my MBA with a concentration in finance from the University of Akron. And with that, I'll send it over to Kate.
All right. So my name is Kate Randall. I'm the territory manager for Tektronic Industries in the Nashville area. So Tektronic Industries is a manufacturing company that's kind of our umbrella brand. So we own a bunch of smaller colleges.
I think we're losing you a little bit. At least I am. I don't know if anyone else is.
Okay. I'm currently located in New Orleans right now, so I'm kind of in the middle of a hurricane. So that could be why.
There you go.
So I'll try my best. I'll maybe talk a little bit slower and see if that helps. So Tektronic Industries, we own smaller brands, including Milwaukee Rigid Ryobi. We represent power tools as well as outdoor care and floor care as well. So I'm a territory manager over some sales reps. I have 9 over Nashville, Memphis, and Huntsville, Alabama. We have sales opportunities all over the country, as well as some finance opportunities. But we're really looking for people who want to take that finance and accounting background and push it towards more of a sales career and move their way up in the leadership development program. Did we hear that? Okay. Are we good? Kind of? Okay. Let me know if you need me to repeat anything, but I'll pass it on to Quincy.
Quincy, you can introduce yourself if you don't mind. Quincy, are you on the call?
Quincy, I think you're on mute. We can see you. We can't hear you.
There you go.
All right, are we good now? All right. Technology, right? Okay. Hello again. First, thanks for having me. My name is Quincy Ackland. I'm the Assistant HR Director with the Tennessee Department of Treasury in Nashville. I'm new to Treasury as of this year. Little overview about Treasury. We are responsible for many of the financial operations of state government, including managing and overseeing more than $75.7 billion in assets through our various investment programs. We serve many Tennesseans by helping to educate and empower them to make smart financial choices and providing public service programs. I'm really excited to be here, and I will pass it now on to Lindsey.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lindsey Sneckenberger, and I work with the Tennessee Valley Authority, or TVA, and we are the nation's largest public power provider. We say our mission is really threefold: to be good stewards of the environment and our natural resources, to partner with local and state governments to provide economic development opportunities across the states that we serve, and of course, what most people know us for is energy, to be a provider of reliable, low-cost power for the folks of the Tennessee Valley. So we serve 7 states and 59 direct serve customers and 154 local power companies like KUB here in Knoxville. So my role is within the financial services organization at TVA. I oversee our recruiting efforts, as well as our financial services intern program, our financial services university program, which is a development program, and our financial services leadership university program to develop our leaders within the organization. So we typically have anywhere from 100 to 150 great interns in our financial services group, and we have about 500 finance and accounting professionals that are primarily located in our Chattanooga and Knoxville offices. So excited to be able to talk to you guys today. So I'll turn it over to Tony.
Hi, my name is Tony Williams. I am the Business Development Manager South and the Data Office I Professional Partner for UWorld Rogers CPA Review. UWorld is a high-stakes test prep company, and they merged with Rogers CPA Review January of this year. So really our goal is to help CPA candidates pass the exam efficiently and on the first try. I've been with the company for 7 years. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. And essentially what my goal and my role is I kind of lead the initiatives and the strategies with our partner accounting firms, with universities, and with professional organizations throughout the South.
Great, thank you all for introducing yourself. So for the students who are on the call and don't know necessarily how today's gonna go, I just wanna give you an overview. So we have pre-assigned questions to the different companies on the call. So you'll get to hear about 2 of them answer each question. At the end of our time, at the end of the panel, you are welcome to ask any questions that come to mind. So if a panelist is speaking and it makes you want to ask a follow-up question, jot it down and we'll have time for that at the end. So with that, our first question is for UWorld Rogers CPA Review and Northwestern Mutual. And the question is, why is it so important to build career relationships? And either one of you can go first.
I can't see anyone's faces, so I'm assuming that I will go first. There are several reasons why I think it's important to build career relationships. I actually do a presentation on branding yourself, and part of that is talking about networking and the importance of networking. And I think the statistic is that throughout our entire work life, most people are going to change careers an average of 5 to 7 times. And I think about 70% of jobs are not posted publicly on our typical job sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, Career Builder, things like that. And I believe it's 50 to 80% of the positions are being filled through referrals and networking. So on the professional aspect of the networking side, a lot of opportunity is going to come to you from your professional network. The path that you're on now may not be where you are in 5 to 10 years, and one of your best bets is going to be through the network that you have. These are the people that are going to open up doors for opportunities. They can be your mentors. You might find mentees. It's just really useful and beneficial to you to have a robust professional network. But I'd also say it's not just about the amount of people that you know and the amount of people you have in your professional network. It's about really building some genuine relationships with them. And I think that's one of the questions later is how to engage with these people, how to build with these people. It's one thing for them to know your name, but it's another thing for them to know you and to be able to speak about your character and your work ethic. So that's one of the reasons I personally got my job through my professional network, and I've helped some of my colleagues come into the company through networking as well. So again, there's just a lot of opportunity that's going to be presented to you through a professional network.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I think that's great. I think the networking and the relationships that you build are going to definitely help you in your future career and can, help you find maybe that hidden job market that you might not know of. I also think that those career relationships are a little bit different than really personal relationships that you build with people, just because they're a little bit more purposeful. So I feel like the people that you develop strong relationships with can be really incredible advocates for your career. They can provide you support, but then also give you access to those new opportunities. Those relationships can be mentors and role models, or even they can just be colleagues or people that you've met in your field of study that can just kind of help you connect, maybe gain support or develop and excel even in your career. So those professional relationships usually are working towards some kind of goal, both of you are, and it's really built on that mutual benefit. So you want to always really have that give first mentality, and that just means that you want to think about, what can you do to support them in their goals or even in their career, and then in turn, they can also support you. So it's really a mutually beneficial relationship. I think that's what networking is all about, is really building relationships that are mutual. It's not one-sided. You want to make sure that you're able to do something for them, and then they're in turn going to be able to do something for you. And so those relationships are just so important, because it's really what's going to help you excel in your career.
Great, thank you both. So for question 2, it is for HCA and Pilot. How have you personally seen the impact or benefit of creating these career relationships?
So this is Matt with HCA Healthcare. I'll kind of build on what Tony and Emily said, because I completely agree with a lot of the points that they made. But I've really seen 2 things during my career at HCA. One is the power of relationships. The other is the value of formal mentoring, and I'll go into a little more depth on that. So in terms of relationships, one of the mantras of our department is to recruit talent out of colleges and universities, train those people up, and then ultimately to place them into different parts of the organization. And so one of the things that I always challenge our new hires or our interns with is to treat every day that you come to work, or in a virtual environment that you show up and you do your job, treat it like an ongoing interview, because the people that you impress along the way, that's where your next career opportunity is going to come from. And I'm able to say that because I've seen it over and over again throughout my career. I've spent 18 years in audit here at HCA, but most people stay 3 to 5 years. They're going to earn promotions, they're going to earn more responsibilities, but more important than that, they're going to build relationships along the way. And the impression that they make on leaders that they come into contact with, that's inevitably where their next opportunity is going to come from. And so kind of pivoting over to the formal mentoring, that was one of the things when I first was hired after graduating in 2002, I was assigned a mentor, and I really didn't know what that meant. But I came to really appreciate the value of mentoring along my career journey at this point. And I remember one of the things that my first mentor, Mike, told me a long time ago, probably 2003. He said, "Matt, I'm doing my job if I'm training you to take my job someday." And I was really taken back by that and thought, there's no way. I'm never going to be as good as Mike. He's been in this role for 8 years. He knows so much. But when I look back on it now, I really feel like that's what he was doing. He was preparing me to take his job so that he could move into something bigger to benefit the organization. And so my advice to all the students here is to, no matter where you end up starting your career, seek out a mentor, somebody that you can learn from, because I really believe it's critically important to your career and your professional development.
All right, and this is Candace from Pilot. I definitely would agree with not only the things that Tony and Emily said, but with what Matt just said, especially in regards to developing a relationship with a mentor. And this is a little bit off topic from the conversation, but don't ever be fearful about asking for those relationships. Some companies do a really great job of putting a program in place and setting them up for you. And your first day on the job, they'll say, hey, you're in our mentorship program, and here's who you've been teamed up with. Some companies don't necessarily have that formalized program set up, but always feel free to reach out to a manager within your organization, or even a senior leader within your organization, and just express an interest in wanting a mentorship. And if they're not the right person for it, they'll absolutely help you find who the right person is. So just really take that first step in reaching out to create that mentorship. But in regards to kind of some impact or benefit you see from creating these career relationships, I think about it typically twofold. One is how it impacts me personally, and that goes a lot with what Tony and Emily and Matt have been talking about previously. Absolutely, all of your interactions that you have with your peers or with other team members at work is an ongoing job interview, and you don't always get the opportunity to network with professional responsibility through everyone throughout the organization. So you might not have the opportunity to sit down with one of the VPs in your organization and go through a work product with them, or to have a meeting with them on a strategic topic. But you can always create those personal relationships with them. You don't need anyone's permission to say hi to them in the hallway or to ask them out for a cup of coffee, things like that. And as folks are starting to think through, hey, who's a great person to take on this new responsibility, or who's a great person to take on this new promotion, you want to be at the front of their mind all the time. And people aren't really going to distinguish between, I think that Candace is a great person to take on this position because we had a really good conversation about her work product yesterday, versus I think Candace is a great person to take on this position because I had a really great conversation with her over coffee yesterday. You just want them to, it's kind of about your personal brand. You can get to your personal brand through having actual work conversations about the tasks that you've been assigned, but you also can establish your personal brand by just those other interactions. And really that's kind of your opportunity to initiate those interactions and to create a relationship and a personal brand with folks that you wouldn't necessarily get that opportunity with if you just waited to do it based on what tasks you were assigned or what meetings you were invited to. But then I also think about, not only is it a benefit to you personally to create those relationships, but it's a really big benefit to your company and to the employer that you're working for, because once you've created that networking or those relationships with the folks that you're working with, work just gets done more effectively and more efficiently. You're more likely to reach out and ask a question to somebody that you know versus somebody that you don't know. They're more likely to reach out and ask for help or ask a question to you if they know you kind of on a personal level. So it just helps work flow better. It often helps problems get solved or helps prevent problems. People are going to give you the benefit of the doubt if they know you outside of the specific task that you're working on, as opposed to if you're a fresh face and you're trying to work through a problem, people are a bit more defensive. So networking and creating those career relationships, yes, it's definitely for your benefit, but it's also for the benefit of the organization. Organizations just tend to function a little bit better and more efficiently when people have great relationships within them.
Thank you, Candace and Matt. Really good points there. So for question 3, it's for TVA and international paper. How do you think building career relationships has changed now that we're in a virtual environment?
Yeah, I can jump in and start on that. So dramatically, right? Because we're all looking at each other through screens nowadays versus face to face. So I think when you think about networking, a lot of it is done informally. So I know, for example, at TVA, and I'm sure we're not unique in this situation, but popping by people's cubes or offices and just checking in. Hey, how you doing? You want to grab a coffee, or what are you doing for lunch today? Or let's take a quick, walk around the building and just kind of catch up. And all of that has really gone away with COVID-19 in the current situation. I know TVA, we're probably home through the rest of this calendar year at this point, so we're adjusting just like everyone else. So I think the biggest things that have come out of this has been being very intentional about networking. So we found really early on that it can be easy to forget about when you're at home, in the comfort of your own home. You're not necessarily thinking about reaching out and checking on a peer or having that informal coffee. So being very intentional and saying, hey, I want to set up, every 2 weeks, a reoccurring informal coffee, where you just sit with a peer and chat about their weekend and just catch up. That's become increasingly important. We saw a lot of that this summer with our internship program. We did go ahead and proceed with the summer program. It was completely virtual, and that was one of the things that we really thought about was, how are we going to ensure that our interns have an opportunity to network with leaders across our organization? So we went through setting up informal small group coffee chats just for them to be able to meet and learn about different areas and have a small group so they'd feel comfortable being able to ask questions. Same thing with them being able to build relationships across their peer interns. That was feedback we heard too. Like, we normally get a chance to get together and go to sites or go do community service projects or different things like that. All of that's kind of off the table right now with the virtual setting. So being intentional in setting up group projects or different types of opportunities. We did a virtual scavenger hunt through Goose Chase this summer. So different types of things that would bring people together in a variety of different types of ways, so folks feel comfortable to still interact and get to know each other on a more personal level.
Christina?
Okay, and I'll jump in for IP. Just to echo on what Lindsey said, building those career relationships in a virtual world is just a whole new area that we're learning to navigate right now and work through really in real time. While in the past we might have taken for granted that casual conversation as you're passing someone's office or maybe in the elevator, we're now having to be very deliberate in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that involves, to Lindsey's point, taking the initiative to set up meetings with some mentors or those within your organization that you want to continue to look to help guide and provide career feedback. So be deliberate, be intentional with that. Another thing that we've implemented and are using is making sure you're using that web camera for meetings. It lets you have a more personal relationship with those that you may be having meetings with. And it can also help you read both facial and body language. So those are things that in the past we'd be able to see on the in-person meetings that now are being taken away from us if we're not using some sort of visual camera. Again, I'd stress the importance of continuing to take on stretch assignments and raise your hand to be involved with projects that'll help you build and strengthen your capabilities. In this virtual world, it's very easy to move into the background and not let yourself be put forward, but continue to take on those opportunities when they're available and continue to look for that potential of continuing to move your career forward.
Great, thank you both. So the next question is for TTI and the Tennessee Department of Treasury. What are some of the best practices for creating and maintaining career relationships virtually?
Awesome. I can, do I sound better, by the way? I think I fixed
You sound great.
Perfect. I can go ahead and start on this one. So obviously some of the best practices include figuring out how your microphone's going to sound, but definitely just taking this a little bit different in the virtual world. So communication is definitely key. It's funny that microphone communication, but when you're in a virtual setting, you're going to have to definitely communicate in different ways. It's no longer as easy as just running down the hall and knocking on someone's cubicle or door to get information. So making sure you're communicating via email, phone calls, Zoom calls. It's really important to just constantly communicate between all different people in order to create as well as maintain. So one of the big things for students as well as for those currently in these careers is to maintain and update your social media. So be it your LinkedIn profile, your Handshake profile, as you are creating these relationships, it's really kind of uncomfortable if your picture is 5 years old and you haven't updated your resume since your first position when you graduated from college. So by maintaining all of that information, the recent internships you've been a part of, maybe your first job when you graduated, we're going to be able to have more updated information on you so that we can really have those conversations, be able to talk about more recent things that have been going on in your world. Along with that, when we are communicating, make sure you're coming up with questions and reasons for why you are communicating and maintaining these relationships. So being purposeful with the relationships, if you're going to set up that coffee or that bi-weekly, bi-monthly meeting, make sure you come prepared for that. So when you're doing a Zoom call, you're not standing there being like, hey, it's been 2 weeks, how you been? Coming with questions, being able to speak upon what you spoke on last time or what you're working on now really shows that you are making an effort to maintain those relationships the way that you would in person, even though now you might be speaking over a phone call or over a Zoom call.
All right, can everybody hear me this time? I think the phrase of 2020 is going to be, can you hear me? So, which I am definitely just showed that. So yeah, the workplace definitely looks different now. Here at Treasury, 90% of our workforce is working from home. So now we're just trying to make sure that people don't feel too disconnected. So we've ramped up our communication. We encourage managers to check in, to almost overly communicate. For my division, we have morning meetings, and we also have wrap-up meetings just to see how people are progressing and see if they need any help with anything. We also have weekly water cooler talks, which is a little bit more casual, where we're just asking, because people basically miss the interaction. There's no one to go to lunch with. There's no one to peek around your cube and ask what's going on. So we also have incorporated monthly book clubs. And team lunches. And we just implemented a new thing last month with that our treasurer, it's called Snacks with the Treasurer. And so we sent out cookies and candies to all of our staff, and the treasurer took about 30 or 45 minutes to just sit down with each division and just basically just chat. You know, it was not business related. It was just to see how everybody's doing and how we are adjusting to this new normal. And, you know, that really comes with people, and you know, we got really good results from that. The only thing I can recommend from to stay in the virtual is that for people to just, you're already on LinkedIn, attend every virtual event you possibly can, you know, and just participate in everything. Thanks.
Great, thank you both. So question 5 is back to HCA and Northwestern Mutual. Networking in general can be an intimidating term. What would your advice be on networking, especially in a virtual environment?
Hey, Rachel, so I can start with that. I was actually writing down, I found myself nodding every time I would listen to somebody else. I heard Candace talk about not being afraid to ask, and that was one of the things that I had on my list too. And, you know, just reminding students that, you know, most good leaders are humble, and they're going to make time to counsel and provide mentoring. And even if they don't have the time, more often than not, they're going to know somebody who may have time to devote to it. So I think that's great advice. And then I heard Candace talk about don't be afraid to ask. And I think that's important too. I think that's really good advice to have. And one of the other things I might recommend is just get involved with professional organizations. And so whether it be, you know, the TSCPA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, you know, ISACA's big in the IT audit cybersecurity space, but, you know, most of those organizations are trying to reach out to colleges and universities and engage with students. And so those are really good opportunities. And they're doing a lot of virtual events. So if nothing else, you're going to get to hear kind of emerging, you know, topics that are important to the profession that you're interested in. And then the last thing I would probably touch on, and again, this was something I think Christina mentioned about just professionalism in a virtual environment. So use your camera, you know, dress professionally, just like you would if you were going into the workplace. And be cognizant of your, and I say this now as I noticed we had somebody walking behind the enclave that I'm in, but, you know, just be, you know, understand what's behind you. You know, if you're turning your camera on, you know, don't be hanging out in your closet or I've actually seen people that take a Zoom meeting or a WebEx from their bed, like they're still laying in bed and it's obvious. So, you know, just be, you know, practice kind of general awareness like that. So that's just some thoughts.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the things that Matt just said is a lot of things I was thinking of as well. And some of y'all previously. I think one of the things that I heard from Lindsey and also Catherine was just to be intentional. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do now in this virtual environment. You know, reach out or connect with people on LinkedIn that are in your field of study and maybe ask to, you know, virtually meet with them. I would say put some time on your calendar, even just 3 to 4 days a week for maybe even 20 minutes, just to spend some time on LinkedIn, you know, send some emails, make some quick phone calls, just to solely build your network. And make sure to keep that ongoing and consistent. You know, it doesn't really help if you do it once or twice, like do that often. A lot of those people can really be great resources for you now or for in the future. And as you decide to connect with these people, you know, really be the one to book the time to meet. You know, say, I want to talk with you, I want to meet with you, and you make that, you know, the intent to actually do that, and prepare for how you want to talk with that person, whether through a phone call or Zoom. And like Matt just said, make sure you're being professional. You know, don't sit in your pajamas on the couch, you know, actually get dressed, take a shower, you know, be on at a table, because that's going to really show when you're actually talking with that person. Another thing I was thinking about is that you could even stay in touch with former bosses or peers, or even people that you just interviewed with in the past. You know, see how they're doing, maybe learn what challenges they face through this environment, or maybe even ask how you could help, because these people can be vital resources. Since they know you on a more professional level and have worked with you, and they may know some opportunities that might be a good fit for you as they come up. But I think it was Tony that mentioned that market that may not be out there on the internet or posted on Handshake or Indeed. I think, Matt, you mentioned this too, but to take advantage of those professional networking events or associations that are out there. I know UT is probably doing a lot of that. I know in the community there's a lot of virtual networking events, and those are just good to participate in. And don't just attend, you know, actually participate, you know, talk, introduce yourself, because those are really great. And can help you get connected to more people in the community. And I think lastly, the biggest tip I can say is really just to make sure you're following through, because anyone can network and make that connection, but if you don't have any way to connect back with them or follow up, that's really important. And if you promise something, make sure that you're delivering on that in a timely manner. So that's super important, because if you're not going to have any intention to connect back with them in the future, then the relationship doesn't thrive. And I think that's even more important in a virtual environment, because you aren't really meeting with them physically in person. You've got to really cultivate that relationship. And the best way to do that is by following through.
Great, thank you both. So question 6 is for TTI and TVA. Is there anything you would advise students avoid when trying to build relationships and network virtually?
I can go ahead. This was kind of a tough one for me because I had best practices. So it was kind of just like avoid the opposite of the best practices. But one thing I did want to bring up with following through that Emily had just mentioned, one thing that I've noticed is I've built connections, and I work with a lot of students. I do a lot of recruiting on campus, is avoid impatience. I know I'm assuming with other employers as well, as we're now in the virtual climate, we're getting probably 3 to 5 times as many emails that we used to get, because it's now everything is email, everything's a phone call. If I leave the day and I still have 50 emails in my inbox just because I'm running out of time in the day, I try to get to it the following morning, but it's really hard to follow up with 1,000 emails, 500 emails in a day. So be patient with those that you're reaching out to. If it's been 3 to 4 days, definitely don't hesitate to follow up. But there are going to be times where we don't get back to you within 6 hours just because we've got other things going on in our business. So avoid being impatient with them. They're doing the best they can in this virtual climate as well. And then really, other than that, following through is really important, but I know personally, I've had a few people who have reached out to me on every single form of media. So they're reaching out on LinkedIn, giving me a phone call, shooting me an email, and then texting me all within the span of a few hours. So definitely kind of stick to maybe 1 to 2 of those. And following through is good, but definitely just be patient with it, because we're all handling it the best we can.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. I think we've talked about it a little bit today already, but turning your camera on is kind of a big deal. So I don't know how many times I'm in some sort of a meeting and I'm literally like the only one with my camera on, and you feel kind of awkward and you're like, I can't really tell how this is landing with that other person or whatnot. So being able to connect as much as you can in this type of environment by turning your camera on, I think could be very helpful. And when doing that, make sure you're actually paying attention. So we've probably all been on Zoom calls or whatnot where you can tell people are just like, I don't want to be here, I'm zoned out, I'm checking Instagram on my phone or firing off emails or whatever it may be. So if you're intentionally trying to build a relationship with somebody, show them that you want to be there and you're valuing their time by paying attention to what they have to say. So and I know we touched on this earlier during the day, but I think making sure that it's not just all about you and what they can do for you too. So if you're scheduling these reoccurring meetings to kind of continue to build that relationship and network, making sure that it's not just, well, can you help me with this or can you do this for me? It's a two-way street, and being able to provide them with benefits as well, I think is important.
Perfect, thank you both. So question 7 is for International Paper and UWorld Rogers CPA Review. Name 3 to 5 of the best ways to engage and build relationships virtually, or just name a handful. We won't count and hold you to them.
Sure, thank you. So at International Paper, I'm really going to speak to 3 different ways that we can build those relationships, and it starts with what our executive lead team, our CEO, Mark Sutton, and senior vice presidents are doing. They're regularly communicating via video messages that allow employees to feel more connected to those decisions that are being made across the organization and it just puts some of that visual recognition back again. It's always better when you can see a face and hear that person delivering the message directly to you versus reading it in an email. It's always adds that personal connection. And as you can see from my background here, International Paper is working from home right now, so it's even more important now. When we get down to more of a team benefit, different teams are doing different things to engage their teams. We've heard of, virtual scavenger hunts. I'd heard somebody had mentioned that earlier. Team meetings, using your cameras so that you can see who's on your team, and it really helps to focus people's attention as well. And then on a personal level, and several have said this already, you have to be much more deliberate. You have to make a deliberate effort to engage others and build those relationships. Those normal encounters that were almost random before that you would have with team members and leaders are now really, they're non-existent. You used to see people in the elevator, you'd see them in the cafeteria at work, you'd see them crossing the street or in the parking garage. That's all completely gone away. And so you have to replace those random encounters with deliberate things that you're doing. And so some of those things that you can do is just pick up the phone and give somebody a call, give a peer a call that you don't normally see in the office anymore. If you have a mentor, be much more proactive with that relationship. And then, as Matt said about HCA, the same holds true at International Paper. Most leaders are eager to speak with you and catch up with you on your career. I know in my career, when I was located out in one of our facilities, I didn't see some of the leaders that I'd interacted with before, but I would shoot them emails saying, hey, would it be okay if I set up 30 minutes on your calendar and we caught up on things? That still holds true now. And most leaders are more than willing to set up, 15 to 30 minutes just to catch up with you on your career and to learn more about what you want in your next role. And those little things are going to be huge as you proceed in your career going forward. And it's not something that most people do. So it's kind of like as a student today, that little follow-up that you do after you've had a interview, back to who you interviewed with, just shooting them a quick email saying, hey, it was nice to meet you. Most people don't do that. So again, if you can do those little things, it makes such a huge difference. You just have to be much more deliberate about it now today.
And I will talk about best ways to engage and build relationships virtually outside of your workplace with your, your exterior professional network from the student aspect. So I know a few of you have already said it, but attending the virtual events like this, attending the virtual career fairs that are being offered to you, look at your state societies, see what they're doing. That's going to be really important. And not only just attending them, but being active and engaging while you're at those events, especially with the career fairs. I've attended so many in the 7 years that I've been with the company, but I notice that sometimes there are the students that have their eyes dead set on maybe 2 firms, and that's, those are the only companies they'll talk to. But I like to encourage candidates to talk to all of the firms attending. It'll give you an opportunity to not only learn more about the firms, but again, to start building and creating those connections. And the follow-up, again, is really important. Even with an event like this, I'm always pleased, I guess, for lack of a better word, when I get an email or a LinkedIn, message from a student who just says thank you. That says a lot, that they're intentionally trying to network. Another aspect would be utilizing social media, not just your LinkedIn. So a lot of you guys talked about your personal brand, and I think that your personal brand can also be extended through social media and the different platforms. So I know professionally, I engage on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook sometimes. And not just having those profiles active and having it show who you are, what you do, what you value in terms of your work ethic and company culture, but engaging again and genuinely engaging. So commenting on posts, liking posts, sharing things, posting your own content, showing the knowledge that you have within the industry that you're working in, so that they can engage with you, sending people messages, reaching out to them every once in a while. And then, the last thing is intentionally, we're going to say it over and over again, but intentionally networking and intentionally reaching out. So scheduling 30-minute, virtual coffee sessions, turning that camera on and just getting to know the other person. There doesn't necessarily have to be, a ulterior motive in terms of, progressing your business or your work. A good example is KPMG has a new Beta Alpha Psi professional partner. She's been with the company for 20 years, but she was new to the organization. And after a random team call, she emailed me and said, hey, I would really like to get to know you. Would you be interested in a 30-minute Zoom call? And, a lot of people would think, she's been with KPMG for 20 years. You think the networking stops, but it doesn't. And she specifically told me that she's realized that she's been in her career for so long that she lost the urge to intentionally network. So that's been a goal of hers since everything we do now is virtual. We're not traveling. A lot of us are not going into the office. So setting some time aside to have these kind of meetings with her professional network or your professional network so that you can get to know each other. And one thing that I always like, as we said, it's a two-way street. I always like when the person I'm communicating with says, what can I do for you? More times than not, there's nothing I want from them other than to genuinely build that relationship, but just the thoughtfulness of them asking that and understanding that we do want this to be a mutually beneficial relationship goes a long way.
Perfect, thank you. So question 7 is for Pilot and the Tennessee Department of Treasury. As you started your career, were there any tools or tips that helped you feel more comfortable with networking?
All right, thank you, Rachel. I'll start this off, Candace from Pilot. I'll start a little bit, I'll talk a little bit as I started my career, but then just some tools and tips in general. And I'll say one of the things I want to touch on, I know we've talked a lot about this on the meeting, about having your camera on. So I'll also say though, as you have your camera on, be really aware of not only what's going on in the background, but what you're doing in your video. If you can't sit still, so I cannot sit still. I turn my video off when I'm not talking if it's not a direct communication. So no one wants to see me fidgeting in the background the entire meeting. It's pretty distracting. In addition to, like, if you have a massive fan or something that's going right here, or a huge ceiling fan, and you have your camera angled so that's the main focus of your video, it's gonna be really distracting for folks that are watching the video and watching everyone in it. So just be really aware of what your entire camera view looks like. Absolutely always plan to have your camera on, plan for other people to have their camera on, and be prepared for that going into the meeting. But then what I do personally is, if there's a lot of people, if I'm not directly engaging the entire time, I turn my camera off when I'm not talking to just prevent any distraction with that. So I'll go through, I jotted down a little list of tools and tips as people were talking and as we were going through this. So I'll rattle through them pretty quickly. But the first is reiterating what a lot of other people said. Be really, really intentional about networking and just do it. Like, it sounds really intimidating. It sounds like it's really hard to do. I'm definitely one of those folks that if there's a huge networking event Friday at 8 p.m., I'm like, I don't want to go to that. No, thank you. But just do it and just be really intentional in the big aspects and in the small aspects. So yeah, big networking events are great. Big virtual meetings like this are great. But then also, anytime you know that you're going to have an interaction with someone, think about it ahead of time. Hey, how can I connect with them on a personal level? So if you're going to do a one-on-one call with someone about a work topic, even think about it ahead of time. Like, okay, what do I know about them personally that I can ask them? Do they have school-age kids? Are their kids getting ready to start school? Do they have a dog that popped up in the last video? Hey, can I ask them how their dog's doing? Just try to think about, how can I connect with them during this meeting? They're going to remember you a lot better. And if you don't have something specific to talk to that person about, I have a coworker that sits beside me that does an excellent job every time he gets off the phone with someone, regardless of who it is. He always kind of wraps up his call with, hey, like, how's everything else going with you? And there are some folks that will launch into a lot that's going on with their personal life. There are some folks that will launch into maybe an issue they're having at work that they need some help on, and we can help address that. Some people are like, yeah, I'm good, thanks, and have no desire to drag out the conversation, but it really gives people an opening to talk about whatever they'd like to talk about if you give them an open-ended question like that. So just be purposeful about your networking, both on the large scale and then also on the smaller scale. And then the other kind of tool and tip that I would say is take notes if you don't have a great memory. So I don't have a great memory. If I talk to someone in 2 weeks and then I go to talk to them 2 weeks later, man, I'm probably going to remember that they have kids because I have kids and I can relate to that, but I'm not going to remember if they're 5 or 15. So there is no shame in having a notebook or having an app on your phone or on your computer that you jot notes down. You might think that after you hang up a call with someone, you're absolutely going to remember some of the things that you talked about with them. But if you don't talk with them for another month or 2 months, it's always great to be able to refresh yourself on what your last conversation was and any little takeaways that you had from meeting with them. So, and then the other thing that I would say, the other kind of tool and tip is, as you're networking in social media, if you send an invite to someone, always include how you know them and why you're reaching out to them to connect. And if you can include something even more personal than that, that's really great. So if I have someone that sends me a connection on LinkedIn, I mean, the LinkedIn app is great. It's super easy to use, but it also lets you rattle off a bazillion connection invites to a bunch of people without putting any thought to it. So after today's call, if I get 20 requests from folks that have no information on it, I'm not going to remember why I know you or where I saw you. But if you want to connect afterwards and you reach out and say, hey, Candace, thanks so much for spending time talking with us today on the Meet the Firm Q&A session. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm going to be much more likely to remember who you are and to want to foster that relationship with you. And then if you can even go a step farther and say, I really appreciated the insight you gave on how to send an appropriate LinkedIn connection, then that's even better. And then if you do reach out to me a year later or 2 years later because, hey, you saw a posting for a position here at Pilot and you had a connection with me based off of this, then I'm going to remember who you are and why you reached out to me when you inquire about something like that the second time. So that's kind of the tools and tips that I had jotted down to run through. So I'll kick it over to the Department of Treasury.
Wow, thanks, Candace. I've actually jotted down some of those recommendations that you gave. I'm going to try to incorporate myself. So personally for me, the only tool that I have been trying to be more comfortable with networking is just continue to put yourself out there. I had to kind of, once I started my career, I kind of had to reshape how I looked at networking. Because when I was so focused in school that networking was who's going to hire me, who's going to hire me, who's going to hire me. So I didn't really take advantage of building any type of relationships with like my peers. And so that's I guess that's the biggest thing I can recommend right now is to, while yes, the focus is to find employment, but building that networking relationship with other peers to really benefit you in your career. Like I get job announcements or I get, just a sharing of information with people that are in your similar field helps a lot with me. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you both. And with that, we are done with our pre-assigned questions. So really quickly, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists. I know I feel like I learned a lot, so I hope that the students feel that way as well. So students, now's your time. If you have a question you want to ask the panelists, you can either post it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. We have about 5 minutes left, so there's definitely time for questions if you have any.
Yeah, I had a question. What would you all advise students going into tomorrow with the individual one-on-one meetings? Some tips for, networking over the Zoom and everything.
I can start. So one thing that I would definitely recommend is don't be intimidated by any of us. We are all normal people. We are all sitting on a Zoom call just like you. So I'm only 23, so I'm pretty fresh off of the college boat. And I remember being so scared to approach employers or to have phone calls with employers. And it can be pretty intimidating, but we're all normal people and we're all doing this too. So we're here to help you and we've been in your shoes. So definitely don't be scared at all and just really come confident and come with questions.
Thank you.
I would also add, approach the event with the same level of professionalism that you would if it were in person. I think a lot of people think because it's virtual, they can slack on certain things in terms of their attire or the environment around them. But I've been doing these prep for Meet the Firm speeches, and that's one of the big things is prepping as if you're going into this and meeting this person in person. So yes, we're in front of, our cameras, and it's a little weird looking into your camera and you're not really like seeing the person face to face, but just being mindful of things like your body posture when you're sitting in front of the camera. When you're meeting with recruiters in person, they're gauging they're not just looking at your resume, they're gauging your character, if you're holding yourself with confidence, how well you speak and things like that. And sometimes that can get lost when you do it virtually. So just be aware of, making eye contact, looking into the camera, having that posture there, being well groomed, even if it is just from, your waist up, things like that. And like, I think it was Candace said, just being aware of your background. So making sure that there's nothing too distracting behind you. There's not a lot of background noise. If you have a roommate or you have a family, let them know you're in do not disturb mode. Put your phone away is a big one too. Like, don't have your phone next to you, and just put it away. Focus on the event and focus on intentionally networking with the recruiters.
And this is Candace. I definitely would agree with a lot of what Tony just said. And I'll also say, I agree that don't be intimidated. I mean, a lot of us were in the same boat just a couple of years ago. And I mean, we're getting used to Zoom calls too. We're working through all of that. But I would also say too, like, keep in mind that these firms have been working from home for a good portion of the year now. So we've worked through all the nuances of, okay, I know I have to lock my dog in the basement when I'm on a call because she'll bark when she hears other people's voices. Okay, I know that I have to tell my husband 30 minutes in advance, I'm going to be on a call today. You can't come in the room. Like, we really worked through all of that. Back at the beginning, when everyone was working from home, it was cute and it was funny when your dog came in and jumped on your lap, or when you had a screaming toddler in the background. We gave a lot of concessions when things like that were happening. A lot of the firms have worked through those now, and there's kind of a new level of professionalism from virtual calls like this. So just really keep that in mind as you're going through this. I think that we can get caught up on social media a lot about kind of the humor around work from home. But keep in mind that we've really worked through a lot of those nuances. So be prepared to come with your best game face and to be professional with it.
I know we're up on time, but I'll say one last thing. Have fun with it. So, I mean, this is an exciting time. I mean, even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, I mean, enjoy it. Try to find an organization or a firm that, you just kind of feel like fits you. So that's the last thing I'll say.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. I really, really appreciate the time that you as panelists took out of your day to participate. I know this has been very helpful for all of us who have listened. So thank you, and thank you for your continued support of UT. We could not do any of this without you guys, and so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.